thank you for taking the time out of your lovely day, sir, to be here.
You're welcome, good sir.
No, but excited for this, dude. You know, it's crazy. It's been some time, and we're finally here. Podcast is about a month out before we do the pre-launch and get everybody prepared for that. So wanted to kind of do this today to kind of, you know, we're both going through a cycle, and I'm sure a lot of men are probably going through a cycle of maybe like reinventing and like retooling themselves for society and wherever they're at in life, right? Like whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's their faith. You know, there's a lot of men that have hit stumbling blocks, right, along the way, and they're looking for insight on how they can retool themselves and rebuild themselves correctly to be able to prepare themselves for whatever they're going to go after next. So I got a couple questions for you that I just want to throw out, and then biggest thing when I ask you these questions, I would love for you to just give me, give me insight into kind of your mindset around not just your answers for these questions, but like also why you recommend this. Maybe there was a time in your life where you thought a specific answer would have been the best. You did it and it didn't work out, so you would recommend for somebody to do this instead because you've already have had that experience, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, for sure.
The first question that I have for you is, what does it mean to reinvent yourself? As a man in today's society specifically, whenever you hear that, like, oh, I need to reinvent myself, like, what does that mean for you specifically?
Yeah, it's a good question. It can mean a lot of different things. I think, there's different chapters in life, and there's a sense, at least I get, when a new chapter is happening for me. And what's cool about being human is you can reinvent yourself at any point. There's no like rules, right? You make the decisions and you shift your identity. So to me, reinventing yourself is taking control, using your willpower, shifting your identity, seeing yourself with that visual of like your third eye, right? Like your imagination, your self-image. You're seeing yourself as the man you want to be. And right now, in the last 2 months, I feel like I've made a completely different shift, new chapter, and it's for the better. It's been great. Mm-hmm. So that's what that means to me.
So do you think every time that there's a new chapter and a new phase starting, like from your perspective, right? Every time there was like a new chapter in your life starting off, do you felt like you've always had to reinvent yourself for the new chapter? And if not, has there been times where maybe you didn't reinvent yourself or prepare yourself again, and you ended up slipping back into like the same old identity that you had before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think sometimes more than others, and yeah, definitely felt like I needed to level up and grow and like become a certain person that I knew I needed to be, but I definitely let old habits, vices, I guess you can call them, definitely hold me back from being the person I knew I needed to be for that chapter to really squeeze the most juice out of it. Because like I definitely got a good experience in that chapter and learned and was able to grow, but I could have got a lot more if I went with my gut intuition and knew what I was supposed to do and did what I was supposed to do.
Right.
But that's a good question. I think some chapters are different. Some there's more required of you. Some have more pain, some have more joy, some have new people, new experiences, new locations. But yeah, it's always good to kind of tune in and get a sense of who you're supposed to be.
So real quick, because you touched on that, you talked about the importance of like a new chapter. Does this new chapter require a new me?
Yes.
Or am I able to just operate the same way that I have? So that, I guess, goes along with self-awareness, right? And like having the awareness of whether you're currently in a position to handle what's coming up, or if you need to reinvent yourself to become a greater man, to be able to have the capacity to deal with that. I'm assuming, is that kind of what you were doing, like reflecting with yourself of whether you needed to reinvent yourself or not?
Yeah, because I kept getting the same results, and I was like, my results maybe were slightly better, but I realized like I have a lot more potential, and I was getting frustrated with myself. I'm like, why have I not created the results that I know I'm capable of? Mm-hmm. And I think everyone deep down in their heart, they know what their potential is. And for me, if I'm not moving towards it each day, if I'm not getting closer to that, or feel like I'm on track, it drives me nuts. And I feel like I'm just letting myself down, my friends, my family. I'm just not living up to who I'm supposed to be. I'm not being able to make that impact I know I can make. So yeah, for sure.
So we just talked about this. We talked about self-reflection. So that's the next question, actually. What role does self-reflection play in the process of personal reinvention?
What role does it play? It's like the whole thing, dude. It's like I mentioned before, like where you see yourself, your self-image, what you know you're capable of, and then also like your flaws, like being honest with yourself. Like don't lie to yourself. You know when you're BSing. You know when you're justifying, like, and you let things slip. You say, oh, this one time, I'll just let it slide. Dude, just be honest with yourself. That's the most important thing, and know where you can be better than you were yesterday. You're not competing against anyone else. You're not comparing yourself and getting into paranoia. You're just like, am I better than I was yesterday? Did I grow? Did I learn? Am I living up to my potentials?
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that real quick before we move on to the next question. You talked about identifying like your flaws and like being honest with yourself. And I think, a lot of times people are probably either going out after certain things that they want to attain, but maybe it's not within their capacity to be able to do those things. And a part of, I guess, having that self-reflection is to identify like, okay, maybe this isn't in my capacity to be able to go after this, right? Like if a person doesn't have the interpersonal skills or the communication skills to be able to run a business effectively, yet they kind of keep hitting this ceiling, right? Where they might need to start a little bit smaller and maybe identify those certain maybe flaws or things inside of them that they need to do some inner work in before they can go and tackle the next thing. That's like being honest with yourself, right? Yeah. So do you feel when it comes to that, like what has allowed you or put you in a position to just be more honest with yourself? Is it just something that comes with age, or is it just something that comes and you just randomly have awareness around like, man, I really need to like cut it out, be honest with myself? Like what allows a person to do that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that are probably still operating under assumptions that of what they're doing as being right, you know what I mean? Which is not, and if they were just honest with themselves, they can cut the crap, so to speak, right? And like get to the real stuff that's important to fix. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just like a level of maturity. It's like there is a point in your life where your awareness is expanded and you're able to look at yourself kind of from the outside in and not just be in the position where you take everything so personally, and be open to feedback and be okay if someone's kind of pointing out flaws, and you almost want to welcome it. You almost want to get to the point where you're welcoming that because you're seeing it as a growth token, I call it. It's like, ooh, a growth token, instead of like, oh, that's painful, that's unfortunate, that sucks, get that away from me, like, I want to go comfort myself and do something else. Instead, just sit with it, let them share with you, honest, and that's how you're going to grow the fastest.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to be able to hit those goals and level up and achieve what you want and make that big impact. The faster you can take criticism, feedback, and realize where you are and be honest with yourself, the faster you can level up. So
yeah,
that's what I would say.
I like that, a growth token. When somebody has something to say, that's positive criticism, like they want to help you out, maybe something that you don't see. And I always talk about those, like there's layers of levels. There's things that I know about me that you know about me. There's things that I know about me that you don't know about me. And there's things that you know about me that I don't know about me, right? It's that third layer there, and I think that's where the growth token is at, right? Like what do other people know about you that you don't know about yourself? Yeah. And then being able to like accept that right? Not running away from it, going into comfort and all that stuff.
Right, 100%.
So this next question is really good because I feel like, me and you have gone to the gym a couple times, and I think working out has been extremely crucial to just the getting on the ball to like reinventing yourself and feeling good about yourself. So my next question is, it's around working out. How do you feel, or how does physical fitness contribute to a man's journey when it comes to reinventing himself?
That's a great question. So for me, I've been in sports, I've been in martial arts, and done all the physical things. And at one point, I wanted to be a professional UFC fighter. I was like training really hard. I had all these coaches, and I realized at one point, after a couple fights, that it wasn't something I was going to pursue as a career. But I grew so much in like mental toughness and everything, especially like a one-on-one match in front of a crowd, the mental toughness that comes with it. And the beauty of sports and fitness and being healthy and being in shape, there's a million benefits that most people know. But for me, it was that sports psychology where I was able to take that, apply it to business, apply it to my life, and it transferred so nicely to where I was able to create a lot more success much faster than the average Joe because of that sports mentality, taking care of my body, confidence is up, my health is up. And when you're healthy, it's not just looking good and looking sexy in the mirror, it's like your energy, your mood, everything else is enhanced, which bleeds into every aspect of your life.
Yeah. So you probably worked out the most throughout the past like 2 months, and you probably have for quite some time.
Yeah.
Talk real quick about like what momentum or what shift do you feel within yourself that's a little bit different than maybe when you're not as consistent, right? Either going to the gym or having a routine around working out. Is there a different momentum that you feel when you are like doing that on a daily basis compared to when you're not?
Oh, big time, dude. Like I mentioned, like everything bleeds into every aspect: mental, social, physical, relational, spiritual, financial. You neglect one, it affects all of them, whether you want them to or not. So when I'm focused on my fitness, focused on my health, I'm in the gym more often, it's gonna bleed into every aspect of my day. You know, how well I'm able to sell when I'm selling on the phones, how well I'm able to communicate, all these things, it's gonna affect everything. So getting the blood flowing, getting in that mindset, making it just a part of your lifestyle is key. So if people are neglecting it, it's like, I don't think they really realize how powerful it can be.
Okay. So this is going to be a really great question because I feel based off of what you just told me, right? There's these aspects of life that we're supposed to have awareness around, right? And like, how am I in this aspect of my life? How am I in my spiritual life? How am I doing in my physical life, right?
Yeah.
Going to the gym. How am I doing in my emotional life? How am I doing with my relationships? How am I doing with my finances, right? And you say that when one gets neglected, it starts affecting the other one.
Yeah.
So I guess from your perspective, right, how can a man or woman that's rebuilding and retooling themselves, right, balance those things out? Like how can they, if they're like, you know, I've heard people like, Rob, I'm all over the place. Like, I don't know what's important and what's not important. And then once I do find what is important, how do I balance this thing out? Like, what have you found for yourself that's worked the best? Do you use apps? Do you jot stuff down? Do you have a structured schedule where you do certain things that you know will add to the bottom line of your identity and who you're becoming? Like, what does that look like for you, or what advice would you give on that topic of how do I balance these things out so that I don't neglect one and it doesn't start affecting some of the other ones?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a couple things. One, I think there's different seasons in life for you to focus on one maybe a little bit more than the other, naturally. Like, you know, you might be in a season of like, you know, hustle, focus, grind. You're in building mode, like especially when you're starting a business, you're in build mode. So maybe something like your social life is affected slightly, but you don't want to eliminate it. So there's different seasons, but generally you want to keep it fairly balanced. It's not going to be perfect.
Okay.
The tool I use, and I was introduced to this when I was 22 years old, changed my life, and I realized, why aren't they teaching this in school, honestly? Like, it's so fundamental, so basic. It's something called the life wheel. So you actually answer a set of questions. There's like multiple questions for each category, and you answer them honestly at a scale of 1 to 10. And then you put those numbers 1 to 10 on each one, and then what it does is it calculates it like a total number for each category, and then you end up drawing a wheel. And on that wheel, you might have some divots, and that so it gives you a visual representation of where you're not balanced, and that's been very helpful.
Okay. The biggest thing I got from that is you don't have to be perfect. Right. So there's a part of you that wants to make sure these aspects are all balanced out, but you know that life is life, stuff's gonna happen. But as soon as you probably start feeling yourself a little bit drained in one area, you probably start paying more attention to it, I would assume. That's kind of like...
Yeah, it's more of like intuitive sense.
Okay. Let's shift over a little bit, talking about social circle. So what aspect of a man's, rebuilding process, what aspect does his social circle play in that? Like, I've seen some people, and I've been in this place as well too, where you want to rebuild yourself up, but you're you're not really around a social circle of people that can contribute to that and help you kind of like level up, right? That believe in you, also that are maybe not doing things that you don't want to be doing anymore, right? Maybe you stepped out of that. You're in a new chapter. You're no longer in that chapter. So what aspect of the social circle how does it play, or how does it relate or correlate to the reinventing of the man?
Great question. So right away, what it comes down to is before you decide who you're spending time with and you're doing all that, it's getting clear on your values. And if the people you're surrounding yourself with aren't supporting those values or doesn't correlate with those, then you know where to say no or set the boundaries or limit the time with them. Because the one thing I've learned over the last 10, 15 years is you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, whether you want to or not, they're gonna rub off on you, and all those aspects we just talked about, mental,
Right.
social, physical. So sometimes I try to lie to myself or trick myself, like, I'll spend time with this person, it's cool, no big deal, and then I slowly start.
It's only 1 hour.
Yeah, it's only a little time, and then subconsciously I start picking up similar habits, or okay, well I guess I'll drink, I guess I'll do this,
Yeah.
just one time. It just rubs off on you. You can't control it, so you have to guard your mind. I know there's like a biblical verse about guarding your mind, and guard your mind and decide who you're going to spend time with, and be very intentional about that, because it's going to rub off on you regardless.
Dude, love it. Last 2 questions as we kind of tailor off here. What are the most common challenges that I guess a man would face when trying to reinvent himself, right? What have you seen for yourself? Like, man, this is a challenge, a challenging area that I've encountered multiple times. Every time I've tried to reinvent myself, I come across this challenge here. Just so that way they're aware, right? Like some of the things that they might come across.
Yeah, that's a good question. You just got to know where your vices are, know where you slip up, know where your distractions are, and put safeguards in place. So when that comes up, you've already got a decision made. So if that comes up, it's like, oh, I already decided this beforehand. And then you hold that integrity with yourself, like, nope, I already decided I wasn't going to drink tonight, so I'm not going to drink when someone offers me a drink. That's a simple example. Nothing wrong with drinking. I love, having a good time. But if you decided you weren't going to do that and you're trying to cleanse that out, then when that presents itself, you have to put a boundary down, right? So you can reinvent yourself into that person you said you're going to be. So just being intentional about it and having those safeguards and eliminating distractions, things like that.
And I think, we talked on social circle a little bit, but I think having a running partner is always great, right? Having someone that can hold you accountable, right? They might be in the same phase as you or similar. Maybe they're just getting out, right? And they can kind of, call you out on your BS, right? Like whenever you're either about to slip back, they're like, dude, you told me this, but yet you're going to go do that. How does that make sense, right? And they're willing to call you out on that stuff. So I think having an accountability partner in your social circle is super important when it comes to that. The last question that I have here as we kind of end this session is going to be more around, you gave us some great tips today, which are all amazing, but I think one of the biggest deterrents to someone reinventing themselves is not seeing the results right away, right? Like they think that they're gonna go read a book, make a new friend, start going to the gym, and day 2 they're gonna be reinvented, right? And it doesn't work that way, right? It's a process that is never ending. It's for the rest of your life. So I guess how does someone that's going to go embark on that journey of reinventing themselves, how can they stay disciplined to the things that they said they were going to do when they don't see results right away, right? Like if they're not seeing the results right away of maybe, let's just use, economically, right? Or financially, their income is increasing, right? But they have a plan to. Maybe they're going to start a business in a couple of months, or maybe they're gonna start reading a book that's going to help them be more spiritually grounded. Whatever that is, like it's a time and a process to be able to get there, right? And even when they get there, it's a time and a process to get to the next phase of it, right? So how do they stay kind of disciplined in those actions without giving up and reverting backwards?
Yeah, and that's the challenge of it. That's where self-mastery comes in. That's where the right mindset. That's where reaping what you sow, where I visualize I'm planting a seed. Like if I plant a seed, it's not going to grow into the tree the next day. It's not how seeds work. They take time. You got to water it, right? You got to nurture it. You got to give it some sunlight and give it some nutrients, which is continuing to pour into it day after day consistently. And if you need to track it, you can track it to give you a better visual of the growth. even if it's like minimal. And a little bit of growth is still growth, even if it's not like next day crazy results. And good things take time. Anything that comes fast usually leaves fast. Things that take time to build are usually things that are great, that last the test of time, that create legacy status, right? So just know that you're making progress each day, you're tracking it, you're following it, you're staying true to your word, and you will see results. It's just a universal law. You keep pouring in the seeds, nurturing them, you're gonna reap what you sow. It's a universal law.
Dude, I love that, man. Thank you for sharing all the insight and the wisdom you did today, dude. It's tremendous and amazing. I learned a lot just listening to you, to be honest. And right, you have your new tattoo.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron for a reason,
It does.
right? And I think that's what we just did today. So we appreciate you coming by and being able to share some of your insight that you have. And we're excited about this journey. So if you got some value from the topic today, Inspire Nation is coming to you this upcoming month with some more videos coming soon and some more audios.